Okay, so following on from the previous video, I'm now going to give you a function. This one here. See if you can spot functions within functions in order to create this function here. Okay, so I gave you an example in the previous video. So here you could visualize this as a function here, and then bury this function within another function, and then bury that within another function or whatever in order to create this function here. Okay, and remember there are lots of ways of doing it. So well, anyway, have a go. Press pause and have a go. Okay, so let's this is just one way of doing it. So let's just imagine this as being in a bubble here. So let's say g of x equals 3x minus 1, because this in itself is a function. And well, so now we are going to bury this. Well, if you visualize this as a bubble here, if you have 4 cosine x, when you put this into the x here, it will give you the top parts here. Okay, so our next step could be h of x here equals 4 cosine of x. So when you bury this into here, it will give you what's on the top. Okay, and then the next step would be let's say I of x here equals x over 7. So you see, when you bury this into here, okay, then it will give you the whole thing on top here, and then whatever the whole thing on top there, you put it into this here. So well, f of x here is really this. Well, remember, g goes on the inside, you put it into h, and then the combination of the two into I. So I goes on the outside, then h, and then g, and then 1, 2, 3. So this thing here will give you this function here. Okay, and there are lots of ways of doing it. You could visualize it as this here. You see, well, you see this. You could visualize it as this: 4 over 7 x. Okay, and then create this as a function. So later on, when you put it into the x here, it will well. Okay, let me show you here. Okay, so first let's call this a function here. Well, I could call this a function and then bury it in the cosine function, but then I'm also entitled to say that this here itself is a function. So rather than having two functions here, by saying this is a function and then bury it into this new function here, just to give me this, or I could just say, oh, I'm just going to say this is a whole function. Okay, so let's say g of x here. I'm just going to say g of x equals cosine 3x minus 1. So rather than using two functions to create this, I am entitled to just say, okay, one function is this whole thing here. Okay, so rather than, yeah, okay, and then the next step is let's just say h of x here. I could say 4 over 7x. I could say that this here is a function, because what you see here, when you put this into the x here, it gets multiplied to the top, so it will give you the equivalent of this here. So this is another way of doing it. So so f of x, you could say, is equal to this h g of x. So here we've only used two functions in order to create this function here. Okay, so yeah.